My name is Martin Hilb from the University of St. Gallen in Switzerland. I gave a presentation this morning on the topic of new corporate governance. A new approach where companies try to add simultaneous value to customers, shareholders, employees and society. An edited version will follow now. Corporate governance can be defined as the way in which organizations are directed and controlled. That's the simplest way to define it. I don't know any big country which didn't have a corporate governance scandal. We analyzed them, and what came out of it is that there were different problem areas. The most important problem areas we have detected is first that there is no one-fits-all approach in corporate governance. Second problem, very often there is a lack of strategic direction on the board level. Third weakness, there is often a lack of professionalism in selecting, composing, reviewing, rewarding, and developing boards. And last but not least, lack of strategic monitoring and also risk management on the board level. Based on this, I developed very simple recommendations, which I call the reversed KISS principles. Keep it situational, keep it strategic, keep it integrated, and keep it controlled. Keep it situational. I mentioned already there is not one-size-fits-all approach in corporate governance. We all know listed companies need other guidelines than non-listed companies. Even big listed companies need other guidelines than small listed companies. Public companies need other guidelines than family companies. Different sectors need different principles. Banks need other principles than hospitals, for example. And in different countries, we need different corporate governance guidelines. One thing which is very interesting is that very often the corporate governance system is similar to the political governance system. Keep it strategic. Now, you all know there is a battle often taking place. Some authors say strategy follows structure, others say structure follows strategy. We think both statements are wrong. We think both strategy and structure always follow people. So the most important success factor of organizations is who is at the top of an organization. Ideal people at the top have a cool head, a warm heart, and working hands. As a company, one of the most important goals is to out-innovate our competitors. And if you want to out-innovate our competitors, we need a culture of trust. People who are anxious will never deliver innovations. Most countries copied the Anglo-American system, which believes that a quarterly shareholder maximization approach, which serves mainly the CEO, is considered as top executive value thinking, is the right approach. And this was exactly the reason why we had the crisis. And this diversity disk differentiates between three different diversity factors. One is the know-how disk. That's the outer disk. You need to have an entrepreneur on your board. That's his or her strengths. What's the weakness? Risk management. But you need also risk management. You need always complementary skills. Never make diversity more complex than reality. So if you only sell in South Africa and manufacture in South Africa and make research in South Africa, you don't need an American on your board. There is a second disk, because very often you have alpha animals on your board. They are not team players. So what you need as a second thing is team roles. You need different team roles. For example, you need a critical thinker, your board, who asks the right question at the right time. That's the strength. What's the weakness? Implementing. You need also somebody who really looks that things are implemented. Then the third disk is the traditional diversity disk. you know, gender, nationality, age. Now, in practice, how do we do this? We do it in that way that we, for each company, if they have to create a new board team, and what we do is we combine the know-how with the functions and with the team roles. We recommend for small companies only 3 people on the board, for medium-sized companies 5, and for big companies only 7. And the reason is very simple. If you have lunch today and you have 9, 10, 12 people around the table, immediately you will create subgroups, and you will never communicate during the whole lunch with all the people. We recommend an integrated nomination, reward, and development committee, an HRM committee, an integrated one, and an integrated audit and risk management committee. Most countries and most companies today follow the Anglo-American shareholder maximization approach. They strongly believe that if the company on a quarterly basis increases profit, they will be successful, sustainable. We strongly believe a kind of yin-yang approach where you want to add simultaneous value to customers, shareholders, employees, and society is the right approach. The current crisis has shown one thing. Before the crisis, many boards never discussed values. And it's a key task of a board of directors to ask the question, which are our values? Then the executive board develops strategies based on these values. The board approves it. The executive board implements it, and the board again evaluates if the implementation was done in the right way. Beside of the value system, which has to be defined by the board of directors, there is another important thing that the board of directors, members of the board of directors, cooperate nicely within the board, that between management and the board of directors there is a good cooperation relationship. Visions without action is a dream, but action without vision is a waste of time. And we all agree on that. Now, how can we come to the next recommendation? We have to implement the vision, and we can only implement the vision by people. So here we have the vision, and now we have to select the right people. We have to review the performance of these people. Based on that, we have to reward positive performance and develop areas for development. And if we have developed areas for development, we have, again, internal people for becoming CEO, for example. Never take a board seat you can't afford to lose. Now, when we select people, we use only one page. For example, if we look for the new chairperson of the audit committee, what we do, we put all the necessary criteria under 4 dimensions: personality dimension, professional dimension, social competence dimension, and leadership dimension. And we put all these elements here, and then if we select somebody, we say who is now interviewing the candidates individually. Always 2 people have to ask in separate meetings such questions. And then they come together, having seen 3 candidates, for example. They say, okay, stress tolerance, what do you have? You say 4, you say also 4. Okay, if both say 4, it's 4. But then you come to integrity, you say, what do you have? You say 2 and you say 4. You say, why do you have 2? And he said he was lying when I asked him this question. Then either you say, okay, then let's agree on 2, or you say, make a question mark, we have to check that. And if you do it like that, within 20 minutes, you can really evaluate the candidate in a very simple way. It's a key task of the board of directors to evaluate the performance of the CEO. We have one example where the chairman asks all members of the board to evaluate the CEO, how he or she sees it. Then he collects all data and asks the CEO to evaluate himself or herself on that form. He summarizes everything he got from the board, and then they meet, and then they compare. How should we evaluate the board? What we do each year at one meeting, each member of the board fills in that form. The corporate secretary evaluates this, and after lunch, he presents the results of all the board members' average. The third area is reward system. Here we have introduced a very simple triangle concept of reward, equity, and fairness. We call it magic triangle of reward equity. We say reward is fair for each member if it's internally fair, if it's fair towards competitors, relevant competitors, and if it's fair towards corporate performance. Last point is keep it controlled. Now here you know all what's in here. These are the general tasks of a board in the controlling area: financial reporting, risk management at the board level, internal control, external, internal audit, measuring effectiveness, communicating and reporting, and legal and ethical compliance. I don't go to all of this because of time. Before the crisis, very often companies concentrated on compliance, and they only meant legal compliance. But that's not enough. I think the key thing, a good company always follows the rules that wherever we are working, we should follow both legal and ethical rules. What we want to find out from a board, we want to know what are the expectations, the satisfaction level, and the voluntary loyalty of our customers, of our employees, of our shareholders, and of the public. One tool is the standardized interview technique. I'll give you just an example. We have it for employees, we have it for shareholders, we have it for customers, and for the public. If an employee is leaving your organization, you show him 25 criteria of an exemplary company. And you say, when you go through this, what is realized in our company, what's realized in part, what's not yet realized, make 3 piles. And then you start which was not realized. You say, not realized is fair performance review. Why? And you say, I'm now 12 years with the company, I had never a meaningful, constructive discussion with my boss, for example. And then on one page, you always list the negative points, part, and positive. And then at the end of the year, you can just count it, because you can say in sales department, what's best, what's worst, in manufacturing, best, worst, and based on that, you develop an action plan. For the board, and that's the last element, you have also such tools. We always start with self-review. When we conclude, we can say an effective board tries to add simultaneous value to shareholders, customers, employees, and society. Tries to be entrepreneurial on the one hand side, but also considers checks and balances. Behaves legally, but also legitimate. Tries to achieve short-term, one-year success, not quarterly, but one-year success, and long-term sustainable success. Tries to learn from other countries, from other companies, from other industries, but always adapts it to their own organization. Try to be transparent, but also fair. I would not do it as all Americans believe you should say everything. I think also in that area there are things where you should be transparent, but there are others where you should keep it confidential, strictly confidential for personality reasons, for other research reasons, and so on. You should try to direct the company and at the same time to control it. And last but not least, a good board should always have its nose in and its hands out of managerial activities. Now, with this, I would like to conclude. With this, I would like to thank you very much for your attention, and I am now open for your critical questions.